Even for the medicinal science, sleep is absolutely ununderstandable. If they try to experiment into the sleeping man and wants to penetrate into him, he will wake up. So sleep is inaccessible for the medicinal objective sciences. It can only be approached, if at all, by our own consciousness, without any external gadget or objective experimentation. So, dehendriya suhridayani charanti. So the dream is gone. We cannot enter there. Sleep also we cannot enter. So the only state available to us for concurrent examination is the wakefulness. And in the wakefulness what happens? Deha, the body, Indriya, the senses, Asu, the life forces, prana, breath, Hridayani, the mind, intelligence, etc., Charanti. They are moving, they are swinging into action, they are activated and propelled, Yena, by which. See, my eyes are seeing, my ears are hearing, my nose is smelling, my tongue is tasting, and my skin is touching. If you analyze it, you will find, I am the seeing. I see, I hear, I smell, I touch, and I taste. So the activating source is the same. That source or causeless cause, which is activating the body, the senses, the life forces, the prana, everything, mind. That also is the same thing he says. So he has described the supreme reality, the causeless cause, in 3 different levels. One, he has related it to the world. Then he comes back to the Jagrat, Swapna and Sushupti, 3 mental states in the human being. And out of these 3, he leaves 2, dream and sleep. And he traces only the wakefulness. And then he wants you to go into and find out what is the source which activates all the bodily activities, mental activities, sensory activities, pranic activities. That Sanjivitani Davehi Param Narendra. Whatever is activating your body, your human personality at all the different levels, sensory levels, oral levels, mento-intellectual levels, that itself is the supreme reality, he says. What do you have to say now? Just see, we were discussing devotion and devotee characteristics. From there, Sreemad Bhagavatam takes you to your own personality, self-examination, analysis. Sanjivitani tadavehi param narendra. O great king, whatever is there within your body in the waking state itself, activating all the different organs, externally, internally, that itself is the supreme reality. Do not think that there are 2. The entire world is a product and an outcome, a creation of your wakefulness. Wakefulness is only one of the 3 states that you have. And these three states, when analyzed properly, what are you finding? The world is emerging in waking state. And the same world is subsiding in sleep state. And while you are lying asleep, your mind produces a dream world completely parallel to the waking world. So you understand that the consciousness or your mind has got the potential to give rise to a wonderful infinite world, exactly similar to what you see in the waking state. There is no difference at all. There also Panchabhutas are there, a number of cities are there. You are sometimes going to Washington, Delhi or Mumbai in dream. Those cities are not different from what you see in the waking state. And when you are dreaming, you are actually not dreaming. It is just like a wakeful experience. Only when it breaks, you say it was a dream. During its prevalence and occurrence, it was not a dream at all. From there you understand your mind or the inner consciousness has got ample and abundant capacity to create even gross matter and the material world as a whole. Now what should be your focus? Your focus should be to understand that the world does not have any independent existence. It can exist only as a byproduct of your wakefulness. And the wakefulness itself is not constantly present. that terminates into sleep. And sleep terminates sometimes into dream. Or without dream, it wakes up again. And all the three are caused and witnessed, generated and preserved by the Antaratma. This Antaratma is the only source of the whole universe also. Shankara has written many compositions. Some of them are in the form of hymns. Hymns means a kind of a stotra, something in the way of an adoration. So he has written a Dakshinamurti stotra. It is considered to be a complete jnana hymn. So he praises Dakshinamurti. The concept of Dakshinamurti is that Dakshina, the word Dakshina means, you know what it means? It means Pradibha, Dhishana Shaktihi, the power, splendor and brilliance of human intelligence. That is called Dakshina. That Dakshina is embodied in the form of Dakshinamurti. Of all the things that he has got a writing pen, a steel pen, and also a grantha, an ancient grantha in the form of leafy pages. When does a man begin to write? He begins to write when there is a lot of knowledge filling in his brain. When knowledge starts overflowing, he becomes a speaker or a writer. I was young, obviously, as everyone was. I was a little shy also in my young days. I have never taken up anything like leadership anywhere. I used to sometimes feel that whenever somebody was speaking or showing anything, something like a feat, I used to feel I can also do it. It was only a feeling, I have never tried it. After getting initiated by my Gurudev in Calcutta, I was very earnest in doing my sadhana, which was in the form of meditation. And in about a year's time, as I perhaps mentioned to you also earlier, I started reading Bhagavad Gita, the Upanishads, the Prakarana Granthas, some of the biographies of sages and the like. Then I had always a flair for sannyasa. If I look into myself, I find right from young age, my body was born in a village which is not very far away from Kaladi, the birthplace of Shankaracharya. So Shankaracharya's story, anecdotes and all those, they were very familiar for us. We used to speak about them, delight in them. So I had three basic influences in me. One is Sri Rama, and Sri Rama's truthfulness and sacrifice. He was very truthful and he was highly sacrificing also. He sacrificed the kingdom. The moment Kaikeyi told him, you have to go to the forest for 14 years, he instantly said, before the sun sets today, Rama will have gone from Ayodhya. I was immensely struck by it. And he later on abandoned his Sita also, for the sake of upholding the purity of his dynasty. All these are brilliant and glorious sacrifices, unparalleled. But he was not a very happy person perhaps, because his life was like that. Without Sita, without kingdom, etc., he had to live. When I looked into Krishna, he was always playing his flute, and cows were attracted, deer were attracted, birds were attracted to him. And every time he was smiling and smiling and smiling. You don't know of an occasion when Krishna shed tears or was unhappy. So I felt Rama was great, and he was great for his sacrifice and truthfulness. But poor Rama was missing something in life. But Sri Krishna seems to be missing nothing. He was delightful and he was also delighting others. When he was in Vrindavan, the cows were happy. The entire Vraja settlement was happy. When he came to Mathura, all the people around him were happy, everywhere. And what did he do? He performed mighty tasks. The sole purpose of Krishna's life was to relieve the earth of the excess wicked burden. I think Krishna must have destroyed about 10 crores of people. 10 crores of people. Can you imagine? And he was very happy. He lived for 125 years. 120 is the allotted span, 5 years more, with no problem. And Brahma and the others came and entreated, appealed to him that you should come back. He said, yes, I also know. But I will destroy my family who will otherwise be proud and then come back, he said. So everywhere, as a young boy, I did not know all the story, but I knew this much, that Krishna was a very happy person and he was also delighting the others. So this was another influence. I want to be happy and cheerful, whatever it may be, and I would like to make people also cheerful. Then the third influence I had was Shankara, the only child of his mother, and that too a widowed mother. Very young he was. Still he decided to leave his mother and go in search of the supreme truth. Where? To the banks of Narmada in Gujarat, all the way walking. Having met Govindapada, his guru, he must have been initiated by him, and the spiritual entry into his own bosom, his own heart, that must have taken place. And to fulfill the desire and command of his guru, he started walking up and down the country, meeting all the scholars of the time, and established Sanatana Dharma. Prasthanatrayam became popular, became known only after Shankara's Bhashya. I was very much impressed by this. And Shankara was a sannyasi. And throughout his writings, he upholds and exhorts all people to take up sannyasa. This sannyasa also, I had a flair. Why I mentioned all this? This Shankara has written quite a number of praises. Praising Lord Shiva, Lord Vishnu, Lord Skanda, Kartikeya, similarly Devi, etc., etc. So many verses. In all of them you will find a unique touch of spiritual wisdom and spiritual philosophical message. Dakshinamurti Stotram is one important item in that. Very few people read it properly and very few people can explain it. But it's a full grantha by itself. Balyadishwapi jagradadishu tatha sarvasvavastasvapi vyavrittasvanuvartamanahamit sada swatmanam pragadhikaroti bhajatam yo mudraya bhadraya tasmai Shri Gurumurtaye namayidam Shri Dakshinamurtaye. I think this contains primarily 8 verses. All of them are explaining the supreme truth. This particular verse I thought of reciting before you only because of its relevance to the discussion of Sreemad Bhagavatam. Sthityudbhava pralaya hedura hedurasya yatswapna jagara sushuptishu sadbehischa dehendriyasu hridayani charanti yena sanjivitani tadavehi param narendra. It is by way of its explanation that I told you all about Jagrat, Swapna and Sushupti, and the I, a reference that you constantly make, the undying nature of it, the constant witness nature of it, etc. See what Shankara says in this. Balyadishwabi jagradadishu tatha sarvasvavasthasvabi balyadishwabi. Our body right from birth undergoes a number of stages. The first stage is Balya, then Kaumara, Yavana, Vardhakya, Balyadishwabi. So the bodily states from young age, as a bala, a child, childhood. From there moving on to adolescence, etc. Similarly, the mind also undergoes 3 states. What are they? Jagradadishu tatha. Wakefulness, thereafter sleep, sometimes dream, and then again wakefulness. Sarvasvavasthasvabi. Even in wakefulness, you have different plights and fates. Sometimes we are happy, sometimes we are agitated, sometimes we are miserable, sometimes there is confusion, delusion, indecision, intolerance, jealousy. So many states are there for the mind and for the intelligence. Sarvasvavasthasvavi. In all these avasthas, changing states. Vyavrittasvanuvartamanam. There was something that was constantly acting as a substratum. A child was born from the mother's womb, and the body of the child was in Shaishava, a Shishutva. And from the Shishutva, it went to Balya. From Balya, it transited into Kaumara. From Kaumara, it transited into Yavana. While these transitions took place in the bodily level, do you think that I also transited? No, not at all. So, Vyavrittasvanuvartamanam. While all these states, one after the other, were coming and going, there was something acting as a substratum, closely following it and remaining unchanged. Anuvartamanam ahamityam daspurantam sada. How do you say that? And that is the expression called aham, I. The I itself is an expression of something present there, which does not undergo any change, but it is constantly associated with all the changes, witnessing all of them, remaining unconditioned, unaffected throughout. Antaspurantam sada. And what is its focus or locus? It is inside. This I is a reference to something inside you, not outside you. So it does not depend upon any external factor. Nothing in this world is needed for its support or for its prevalence. Swatmanam pragadikarodhi bhajatam yo mudraya bhadraya. That aham, otherwise called the Atma, Dakshinamurti pragadikarodhi. By a chin mudra. By a chin mudra. By the mudra, for the devotees, he reveals them. What is this chin mudra called? You know, this finger always points to something other than you and outside you. And this finger is the support for all of it. So this and this I and you, these are always different. When the I-you differentiation is lost and both are coupled and united, when the subject and the object are really united, they merge each other, that is the real state, the real source. Yo mudraya bhadraya tasmai Shri Guru Murtaye Namayidam. That Dakshinamurti, who is able to demonstrate before the others by his chin mudra, the supreme truth called the inmost self, that Dakshinamurti I prostrate before. So it is in a way a hymn, an adoration. But by virtue of the content, value, message and declaration, you will find it is completely spiritual wisdom. Shankaracharya has written another big text, perhaps the biggest he has written. Sarva Vedamda Siddhamda Sara Sangraha. 1000 verses are there. People say that this particular 1000 verse writing, it is completely embodying all his bhashya for Brahma Sutras. It runs like this. Ayatasu gatasu shaishava mukhavasthasu jagran mukhasu anyasvapyahilasu vrittishu dhiyo dushtasvadushtasvabi ganga bhanga paramparasu jalavad sattanu atmanaha tishthatyeva sada sadaham Tishtatyeva sada sadahamahamityegatmata sakshinaha. This is another way of describing. I don't know. I marvel at these recitations, at these verses. Now, this is where you find the great immortal culture of our land, Bharat, is contained. It is reverberating here. Ayatasu gatasu shaishava mukhavasthasu jagran mukhasu ayatasu gatasu. When a child is born, it is born as a Shishu, Shaishava. As we are looking at the child, the mother is feeding, breastfeeding. Every day she looks after the child. The child is growing. What does it mean? Shaishava is vanishing. And as Shaishava is vanishing, you will find Balya is coming. Ayatasu gatasu. One goes, another comes. One comes and the other goes. Ayatasu gatasu. Shaishava mukhavasthasu. This is what is happening in the bodily level. In the mental level, Jagran mukhasu. Jagra, Swapna and Sushupti. Anya swapyakhilasu vrittishu dhiyo. Now within the Jagrat you will find the mind and intelligence undergo a number of transitions. Early in the morning when you get up, good morning. You want the morning to be good. Sometimes or invariably it is not good. You see somebody, that person may be unhappy, another man may be happy. So everywhere you will find Anyaswapya akhilasu vrittishu dhiyo. The mind has got its own moods, plights and states. The intelligence has got its own moods, plights and states. And how many they have, we cannot say. Within the same day, within the same hour, your mind and intelligence are not uniform. The experience is not the same. Akhilasu vrittishu. If you closely examine, you will find. Get into your mind and examine the thought process, you will find how many thoughts are noble, edifying, noble, adorable, and how many thoughts are not so, ignoble, depressing. So if you closely examine, you will find so many different, a variety of good vrittis as well as bad vrittis, good thoughts as well as bad thoughts. Dushtasva dushtasvavi. They may be dushta means wicked, adushtasu means virtuous. In all these things he says, Ganga bhanga paramparasu jalavad. If you look at the Ganga, particularly before it comes down to Haridwar in the plain, look at the Ganga, torrential flow, striking at huge rocks, producing a lot of sound, splashing water to several meters above. So in all these things, Ganga bhanga paramparasu, there is one factor that is constant, Jalavad. That wateriness of Ganga remains the same. All these things are taking place in and through water, but the water is not affected. Water is not affected. It may flow, and even rocks may be worn out, but the water doesn't get worn out. Ganga bhanga paramparasu jalavad sattanu atmanaha. If the thoughts have to come and go, where will they come? Where will they go? One thought comes and goes. So the next thought, that thought which has gone cannot produce. So who produces the next thought? That also vanishes. A third thought comes. So apart from the thought, there is something that is closely coexisting at the bottom, as it were. So there is a substratum, and that substratum is giving rise to all these transitions, all these transformations. Ganga bhanga parampara sujalavad sattanuvrtta atmanaha tishtatyeva sada. Constantly it remains there. It abides there. It inheres there. It exists there. It prevails and reigns there. Tishtatyeva sada sadahamahamidi. And that is the one which you call I. When you become totally depressed, you say, Swamiji, I am very depressed. When Arjuna went to the battlefield, looked at Bhishma and Drona, he started wailing aloud. And he said, no. He says, my whole body is scorched by grief. I don't want anything. Even then he was saying, I. Who became miserable? Arjuna became miserable. Who became doubtful? I in Arjuna became doubtful. And the same I became illumined, became strong, took back the weapons and fought for 18 days. If you ask Arjuna, who was aggrieved? I was aggrieved. Who got stability? I got stability. Who said, I will not fight? I. And who fought? I. So the I part doesn't change at all. Ahamiti.